Hey everybody, welcome back to Yanks the Cop. We are here tonight for our Champions League special for the Porto versus Liverpool game. I'm joined by two special guests. First of all, I'm just going to welcome a recurring guest in Jay. Good to see you, Matt. How are you doing tonight?
Glad to be on again. Looking forward to tomorrow's game.
Good, always good to have you on, mate. And then we've got a special guest in Guy, first time on the show. How are you doing, Guy, mate?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on. Yeah, I'm all good, thanks.
Good. So, boys, obviously, I know everyone's probably talked to death about the weekend, but how are you guys feeling after that Brentford game? Because I know there's been some see it as a great point, some have been disappointed of the defending, the fact that we could have gone maybe I think 2 or 3 points clear of the top. So start with you guys. How are you feeling now? Have you got over it, or do you see it as a good point, or are you still thinking on like how Liverpool defending that way? And that's not how Liverpool like.
I don't know. It's a difficult one to gauge. I think naturally, when Liverpool don't win, there's a tinge of disappointment that actually, how have Liverpool not won? Given kind of the heights that the team have scaled in the not too distant past, that you kind of look back on and think actually they're capable. It's a newly promoted team; they should be winning that game. Equally, I think you look at that last 20 minutes, and it could have been it could have been a defeat. There's Van Dijk chasing back with Ivan Toney. There's the offside goal from Ivan Toney as well. Equally at the other end, of course, David Raya with that late save. I think it came off Janssen, didn't it? As Firmino was just behind him, and Salah obviously had that chance even before it was 3-3 to kind of make it 4-2 and wrap it up. So in the end, I think you probably have to look at it and go, it's probably an even point in the end of the balance of play type thing. But on Brentford as well, I think they're going to give a lot of teams a lot of troubles this season, and I don't think it will be until you see some of the other big boys go to Brentford and maybe drop points that actually you'll look back on it and think, yeah, perhaps it was a point, respect it and move on.
What about you, Jay? How do you feel about the Brentford game now?
Well, look, going into the game, people were expecting Liverpool to win the game, obviously. But I thought it'd be a little bit tough because they've adapted really well to the Premier League so far. And the only defeat that they've had so far this season was against Brighton at home, and it was a late winner as well. So, they've done really well. And they're like a handful, aren't they? They've took to the Premier League like a duck to water, really. And, we're in Toney and Mbemba up front. They've got two dangerous players, and Toney causes all kinds of problems, but it wasn't just his aerial presence, it was the movement of the other players as well, the midfield runners. Liverpool just couldn't get to grips with it, really, and Mo Salah should really have put us in front early on. It wasn't really his fault, it was just a great goal line clearance. And then basically Brighton had like 3 opportunities to take the lead, and eventually they did, and it's a little bit of a shock to the system because no one's really done that to Liverpool this season. We weren't expecting it at all, and it's a little bit of the unknown. Because it was cold, but luckily enough we got back into the game. A fantastic ball by Henderson with Jota to score. For someone who's not that tall, he's really good in the air, Jota. Really deceptive how good he is. But like I say, Liverpool took over a little bit then and should really have been ahead, I thought, by half time. Got the goal in the second half, which I think Salah thought he was offside. He was marginally onside. Scored his 100th goal for Liverpool in the Premier League. Fantastic. But you just got that feeling that Brentford were not going to lie down and accept it. And they were causing us problems, as I say, the midfield runners for me. And they were doubling up on Trent at the back post. And then, of course, they got the equaliser. And Liverpool done really well to go ahead again. And you're just thinking, right, this is it now, a bit of game management. And it just wasn't to be. And obviously they scored to make it 3-3. And you're looking at the defensive display. And it was a shock to the system because Liverpool have been fantastic this season defensively, haven't they, really? Let's be honest about it. And, they really did surprise us, but I was expecting it to be tough, I really was. And like I say, they've got nothing to lose, they're new to the Premier League, and as I say, they've adapted to it really well. They will cause teams a lot of problems this season, they really will. They already seen it on the opening day against Arsenal. They caught them cold, beat them 2-0, convincingly won the game, deservedly so. And like I say, they could have won it at the end themselves, couldn't they? But for Van Dijk, a great challenge at the end. But you'd have to look at Liverpool and think, we had chances ourselves, didn't we? I mean, Mo Salah could really have had a hat-trick. Jota could have had a hat-trick as well, couldn't he? Their goalkeeper made 2 outstanding saves, to be fair, but, when you're point-blank range, you've got to be scoring them. Jota's in the first half, and think it was in the second half. We had another chance, didn't we, towards the end? Just disappointing, really, that we've dropped points. But like I say, they will cause other teams problems this season. And, make no mistake about it, you've got to reflect now and say that's probably a decent point, all things considered. The only downside, I'll say, is we were actually in front 2-1 and 3-2. So it feels like, at the time, felt like a defeat. But when you analyse the bigger picture, they're going to cause some problems this season to teams.
Yeah, I think with Brentford, they remind me of like Sheffield United when they first came up 2 years back, when they caused loads of teams problems. And it was tough for any team to play them, even at Bramall Lane, because of how they played the direct. They got players forward. So I think that's what Brentford, because, they were, I think they did what they did so well is they beat our press. Most teams don't do it, but they're able to always go long and beat our press. And I think that's what I think I credit them with. They had a good game plan there, and obviously knowing that, Salah probably isn't going to drop back and help Trent that much. So they obviously realised there's a chance then to double up on Trent on that side, because he's not going to get protected that well. And I think we saw against Milan, he wasn't protected that well again in that game as well, the right hand side. So I think maybe that's where people are identifying that there's not much protection on that side compared to on the other side, where you're going to get Mane dropping back and doing his defensive work. But going on to Porto tomorrow night. So Porto no mugs. Just looking at their results, they're second in the league with 5 wins out of 7. They've got a very good draw in Spain against Atletico Madrid, against a good Atletico Madrid team. We'll start with you, Guy. Like, how are you feeling about Porto? Because I think a lot of people are thinking back to when we beat them 4-1, that maybe the same team, and I don't think they are that same team. Because I think they shouldn't be underestimated, and I think they are quite a good team if you take them lightly. So what do you think about Porto?
Yeah, completely with you. I think a lot of people are looking at them as this group's whipping boys, but as you say, acquitted themselves really well against Atletico Madrid. They were in pot 3, and I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? It's a dangerous sort of position to get into, thinking Liverpool have scored a hatful of goals against Porto last couple of times that they played them, and this will be a rollover and a walkover. Well, the opposite of that is that Porto are going to be smarting. They're going to be hurting. Yeah, their squad's probably changed a fair bit since then, but the common denominator is they've still got the same coach, and he's still going to want to be putting things right. I mean, Diogo Jota was speaking to the press earlier today in the media conference ahead of the game, and he basically said, being a Portuguese player himself, that he keeps an eye on Porto. He used to play for them, and he kind of knows what's kind of being said and felt around kind of Porto over in his home country, and was basically kind of saying that is how they see those results, that they don't feel as though in those games they acquitted themselves to the level that actually they can play at, and that Liverpool will be expecting a reaction. Now, it's not quite the same Liverpool side that put those goals on Porto. Like you mentioned just before, Sadio Mane, he seems to be a bit of a waning force right now for Liverpool. But in Diogo Jota, they could have a real key man. But I think with Porto, it's a case of going there away from home, trying to get an early goal and silence that home crowd, hopefully in the first 15 minutes. Because if you look through Porto's kind of European history, and I suppose kind of the last 15 years since winning the trophy under Jose Mourinho, especially when they played British sides, it's been a case of, if there have been a couple of early goals for British sides, they've been able to roll them over quite easily. But on the other hand, if they don't, Porto can grow into a game and really cause a few problems. And I think a lot of people maybe are taking them quite lightly, given that AC Milan and Atletico Madrid are in this group for Liverpool. But I think it's going to be a tough assignment. I really do.
What about your thoughts on Porto, Jay?
Yeah, look, it's a really tough group. There's no doubt about it, and everyone's looking at them games, aren't they, where we beat them away 5-4 in the last couple of years. But it's a totally different game. I watched the press conference today, and he said exactly that. We can't really look too much into them games. They've changed a lot. I think they've got 3 players left since the last time we played them. That's left in the squad, or that's going to be available for selection. The fullback Corona. I think it's Octavio, is it, or someone who Liverpool were linked with in the summer, and Bruno Costa. We've had a lot of change really at the club. And look, that league, the Portuguese league, it's normally always between Benfica and Porto. But last season, Lisbon won the league. It was a little bit of a shock, wasn't it? But that doesn't mean that Porto are on the decline or anything like that. Fully expect it to be a difficult game, and we've got a player that Everton were actually linked with in the summer called Diaz. He's a winger, Colombian winger, and from all the reports that I've heard about him, that he's a very dangerous player, very quick, direct, and he could cause Trent a few problems if he does play right back against them on Tuesday night. So let's make no mistake about it. These are no mugs. Like the game against Atletico Madrid in the Metropolitano, if anyone was going to win that game, it was Porto. They were arguably the better side, and I think they had a goal disallowed late on, didn't they, as well in that game? So any team that can go and equip themselves really well against Atletico Madrid, home or away, they're not going to be any mugs, are they? You know what I mean? Especially when look at Atletico Madrid now. In the past, when Liverpool played them and they beat us, they didn't have they've got Griezmann now, they've got Suarez now, they've got a lot better attacking players than they did when they beat Liverpool a couple of seasons ago. So they're a very dangerous team, and Porto went there and kept a clean sheet. So, that tells you all you need to know about this team now. They're much improved. I do believe that Pepe is meant to be out of the game now, isn't he? So that's a little bit of a blow for them, because people might look at Pepe and think he's a little bit over the hill. It's all the experience that he's got, and it's the game know-how. Champions League football, he's won it numerous times, numerous occasions. So you've got to think that that's probably a blow to them and a bonus to Liverpool. But like anything else with Liverpool, we're an experienced team now under Jurgen Klopp, aren't we, in Europe? We've been to like a couple of finals. Last couple of seasons a bit disappointing, losing to the two Madrid teams in the knockout stages. But like I say, Liverpool are experienced enough to know that you can't just expect to turn up somewhere and get a result. We'll certainly have to be on it in the drag out on Tuesday night. And look, we've got experienced players ourselves now, and it's whether or not they can handle our attacking players, because I'm not sure they can. But I'm expecting it to be a totally different game to the previous ones that we've seen played in that stadium in the past.
Yeah, I think speaking about that, the Stadio de Grago is a tough ground to go, especially with their Porto's fans. Obviously, I'm not going to say the atmosphere is anything like Anfield, but it's still a formidable ground, on a European night. And, as you both mentioned, have said, obviously, if Porto go up, they can be quite a difficult team to play against. So, for both of you, how important is it? We'll start with you, Guy, again. How important it is for us to really silence that crowd and making sure that, especially, away games can be. And I saw there's a stat that you don't need to win that many away games in the Champions League. As long as you don't get beaten, you win your home games, you can still go quite far in your group and actually go, obviously go quite far in the tournament. I think even when Liverpool won the Champions League in 2005, we didn't win that many away games. So how difficult is this ground going to be? With the fans completely different to how it was last year when teams played them, because obviously with any club there was no fans. It made the atmosphere awful. So how difficult is the stadium going to go in there tomorrow going to be?
Yeah, definitely. I think off the top of my head, might be wrong. 2005, I think they won away at Deportivo and away at Chelsea. Might be wrong, but I think that was it. 2 wins in an away campaign in the Champions League. It's the old adage in Europe, isn't it? You win your home games, you draw the away ones, and that'll see you right. And I mean, if you do that in the group phase, then you're getting 12 points, and it's going to take a decent team to eclipse that. In fact, I would guess you probably wouldn't really be beaten if you can pick up 12 points, 9 at home, 3 on the road, and you see yourselves through. But no, it's one of those, when the draw's made, you think, crikey, look at that. Porto, AC Milan, Atletico Madrid. What a 3-ball that is for Liverpool to be in with, and what places to travel around Europe. And obviously with supporters kind of being back in, it only adds to the atmosphere of all of these occasions. But equally on that, when you then actually come to the games, you realise actually the hostility and the environment within that they've got to be played these games. And it is an occasion and it is a brilliant time. But I think there for Liverpool, that's where your big game players come to the fore. You think back to when Liverpool last won the Champions League and the away win at Bayern Munich in the knockout round, and going to the Allianz, and you see Van Dijk stepping up with a huge performance, Sadio Mane stepping up with a huge performance. And I think it's likewise again tomorrow night on Tuesday night against Porto, that it's going to be needed to be led from the front now. Obviously, there's a lot of debate around what Jurgen Klopp will do with his squad. There's the Manchester City game coming at the weekend. It probably doesn't come at the ideal time, this fixture for Liverpool, but if they can get 2 wins in 2 to start the European campaign, all of a sudden, I don't think you can rest on your laurels and think, oh yeah, that one's done, especially with Atletico Madrid being the next team to come up against. But it is a case of them moving on quickly from that. I would say Jurgen Klopp really will want to attack this game, maybe try and get a couple of goals ahead, maybe 60 minutes on the clock, and then maybe look to start bringing off a few players. Because I think I'm right in saying, Anna, it's still 5 substitutes in the Champions League this season. So
yeah.
I think that the idea would be go and attack the game, try and get a few goals ahead. I mean, you do that in any game. I'm not saying that you don't go into a game and not looking to score goals and win, but if Liverpool can get a decent cushion in the game, then start bringing off players, and then you start thinking about Sunday. Because, as I say, I think if you look ahead of this game too far, it could be dangerous. But it is going to be key to start faster away at the Dragao.
Yeah. What about you, Jay? How are you seeing that? Obviously, the Dragao tomorrow as a ground. The atmosphere there, and also the importance of hopefully going to go up. And if you've got to go a goal down, how hard that's going to be for Liverpool tomorrow night?
Well, look, Liverpool have got experience of playing in that stadium with fans there anyway. So it's like any ground that you go to, especially one that's they've got good, decent backing by the home supporters. You want to silence the crowd. So the first 15, 20 minutes are always vitally important anyway. That goes without saying. But I think with Liverpool, we've already had that experience on numerous occasions. And as I said before, people have criticised Liverpool for not really dipping into the transfer market to strengthen the team and the squad. But that's when you analyse this game now. All this group of players have got that experience of being in this environment and playing at that stadium and also winning the games as well. Now, I said before, which is also what Klopp said in the press conference, that you can't read too much into them 2 performances and the comfortable victories that we had. Of course you can't. Total different game, different set of players that we're going to come up against, really, especially for Porto. But like I say, what it will help with, or it should help with, is the fact that we've played in this environment before. So it's not going to shock us. It's not going to be a shock to the system. Pretty much the way we were talking about the Brentford game before. Liverpool, the first time we'd ever played at that stadium, first time we played Brentford for a long, long time. And, their system, they just shocked us. There should be no surprises at all coming up against this Porto team in this Porto stadium. So I wouldn't read too much into that. But the only thing I will say is the first 15 minutes are key. Because the last thing we want is to go a goal behind and to get the crowd behind them. It is all about silencing the crowd. But as I said before, Jurgen Klopp and this group of players, they're experienced enough to know that anyway, and hopefully we'll be okay.
Yeah. Everyone who's watching, please smash the like and subscribe button. We appreciate it. We're going on to Porto's danger men. Obviously, earlier on, Jay, you mentioned Diaz. I mean, he's got 5 goals in 7 games. They've also got Mehdi Tarema, I think he's an Algerian Moroccan. He's got 4 in 7. Then he got 80 goals from last season. They've also got Fabian Vieira. We were linked with him. Decent, quite a technical, good centre midfielder. And also there's Marko Grujic. Although he's not played that much this season, he's still there on the bench, and we know he's still a decent player. So obviously, going with you guys, these are obviously players. They've got players that could trouble us. They're quite a technical team, which is obviously completely different to how Brentford play. They're still quite a technical team, and obviously with some of these players are quite quick. So it's going to be important that our defense is switched on for this game.
Yeah, I think one of the big ones as well is going to be Fabinho, isn't it? I mean, I think it's fair to say he wasn't at his best against Brentford. I think going to Porto, he'll be wanting to kind of put in a big performance against them. And I think you mentioned a few of the silky technical midfield players there. And Fabio Vieira, I think, is one player who I think for the under-21s in the summer, I think he may well have been the golden boy or star man for the under-21s tournament during that. And he looks a real talented player. But again, they can only do something when they get the ball to them. So this is where Liverpool need to, and what Jay said before, I think, and a big thing is that kind of cohesion that this squad has now built up over a number of years. A lot of people, we have that recency bias of, oh yeah, you go and buy a big name in the transfer window and everybody eulogises about it and says, oh, what a great signing that is. Saul Niguez, for example, was linked with Liverpool through the course of the summer. He's gone to Chelsea. and he's done nothing so far. And yet Liverpool have a system and a machine that is well oiled, and it's a case of going there, not letting them have the ball and try to dictate things, getting it off them, and Liverpool setting the pace. Because as much as those players you've mentioned are very technical, I doubt if Liverpool play to their full capacity and full tempo, those players are going to be able to cope. The physicality that Liverpool will bring will be far superior to what Porto can perhaps offer. And it might be interesting to see if Gruitch gets put into the midfield, because he'll feel as though he's got a point to prove. But again, like Jay said before about going to the drag out and knowing what they'll come up against, if Marco Gruitch is in that midfield, it's not going to be any surprise to the Liverpool players, because whilst we've not seen much of him from the outside looking in, he will have been training at Liverpool when he's not been out on loan through those pre-seasons for the last couple of years, and the Liverpool players will know exactly what to expect from him.
What about your points, Jay, on the danger man that Porto have?
Well, the outstanding one's Diaz, isn't it? Because he's the main man, he's the main threat really that we've got, because a couple of the European sides were interested in him. Obviously, Everton as well, we one of them, and I know we like to mock them a little bit, but ultimately we know Rafa Benitez knows the time of day, knows a player, doesn't he? And if he wanted them, then that tells you all you need to know, that he's obviously a very dangerous player. So he's one to watch. And as I say, it's interesting because Trent Alexander-Arnold's always been sort of criticised a little bit, hasn't he, for his defending at right back. He's fantastic on forward, delivery's unbelievable. But defensively, sometimes it comes into question. Now, I think he's improved a lot the last 12 to 18 months, to tell you the truth. And when there was all the talk of the Euros saying, he's not going to go as a right back before he got his injury, and there was 3 or 4 other right backs there that were in contention with him, he actually come out top in terms of the actual defensive side of his game, which surprised me really. But I do think he has improved. Things been visible that they've worked on it in training. But like I say, he struggled a lot, didn't he, at the weekend against Brentford. I don't really think that was just down to himself, though. It was like the shape of Liverpool's back line was all over the place, and he was getting doubled up and teamed on a few times, really, and never really got helped out at all by Matip, which surprised me because Joel Matip's been outstanding this season, but he had a shocker there on Saturday and didn't help Trent at all, really. And we all know that Mo Salah plays on his side as well, so he doesn't really track back as much as maybe Mane does on the other side, so it makes it a little bit more difficult for him as well. But like I say, he's probably, if he does start the game, Trent, he probably could be in for a very interesting evening really against Diaz. He's certainly the main man that I know about anyway. And as I said before, an experienced team really, when you think that they're always in the Champions League anyway, so they're not stupid themselves. They've come up against Liverpool a couple of times now. Their manager's been there a few years as well, so he knows what to expect from Liverpool. It's just whether or not they can counteract Liverpool really in this game. And like I say, home advantage is going to be hoping that they can get the first goal. And like I say, the onus is on Liverpool really to sort of take the sting out of it for the first 15, 20 minutes. Hopefully they don't score and Liverpool do score first. And like I say, hopefully we'll go on to win the game then. But I probably would say Diaz is the main one we've got to look out for tomorrow night.
So looking at tomorrow's game in just a bit on how it's going to play out. So 2 questions here. So the first one was, again, we'll start with you guys. The first question is here, does the defending on Saturday help us? The fact that happened the weekend, it allows us the chance to, reflect on that. We've had players like Henderson come out to the defender wasn't good enough, and then to, right that wrong, tomorrow night. And then also the other question is, what is the key for Liverpool to get an away win tomorrow and get this game wrapped up?
Yeah, I think the point on the defending, actually, I don't know. Jay said before, it felt like a defeat on Saturday at the full-time whistle, given Liverpool led twice in that second half. But ultimately, with what's to come during the course of the season, it is a long season, isn't it? Not everything's going to go perfectly every week. It's not 2019-20. That was a freak season where everything did go right. That isn't normality. And I think it might serve as a bit of a wake-up call maybe for Liverpool. I think a lot of people from outside haven't been tipping Liverpool to do much, but there's been this very steely, quiet confidence within the camp at Liverpool of, we're going to prove a few people wrong yet again. We had injuries last season and that was what held us back. And they have been complete and reassured performances, maybe second half against Chelsea aside, where they struggled to break down what was a very well set up defence. But I think that draw at the weekend, maybe, and the defensive vulnerabilities that were shown, maybe just serves as a bit of a wake-up call. That's a point on the road that Liverpool have now, and they can't do anything about it. They move on. But now ahead of what could be a huge week, get back-to-back wins in the Champions League to start the campaign, and then into Man City ahead of an international break. If Liverpool were to slip up in this one, then the pressure ratchets up even more ahead of Man City's visit to Anfield. If the unspeakable happens in that one, it's a long 2 weeks until the players come back from the international break and there's a chance to set it right. So I kind of think the defensive lapses, we can call them, on Saturday may well serve as a bit of a reminder that actually Liverpool aren't sort of maybe at the exact sort of top level that we know they can get to just yet. And this game serves as a real sort of opportunity to get to that. In terms of getting the win, it's what we've said sort of throughout so far. That first goal is going to be absolutely pivotal. And I think if Pepe isn't available for Porto, I think that's going to be a huge thing in the game, because this is a side that, lest we forget, beat Juventus last season in the Champions League knockout stages. They do know their way around, and with a guy like Pepe at the back, albeit maybe aging, has certainly sort of been and gone the course, the distance of the course throughout his career. If he's not there marshalling that back line, hopefully we do see Liverpool's forward line in sort of in full flight and able to reach top gear and really kind of go through this Porto defence like a knife through butter, hopefully, and get a few goals and get the win on the board. And as I say, tee it up for what's to come at the weekend.
Yeah, that's good points there. How about you, Jay? How are you seeing, does the defending decided make you think, okay, Liverpool now going to use that as a wake-up call, and we're going to see a switched on Liverpool tomorrow night defensively and back to our imperious best? And what do you think is the key as well to getting the 3 points tomorrow?
Well, look, sometimes in life you need a little bit of a kick up the backside, don't you, to sort of have a little bit of fine-tuning. And maybe Liverpool, we had started really well defensively this season, but maybe we needed that little, push, shall we say, to sort of like not rest on our laurels and think that, Liverpool are untouchable. And there is someone that can shock you a little bit, and that's what Brentford proved, that, there is things to be worked on still on the training field. I mean, look, you've got to consider that was probably Liverpool's best back line, really. And we did look all over the place, but the beauty of it now is we can mix it up a little bit. Tsimikas has proved to be a very adequate deputy for Andy Robertson, who I don't think's had the best season in the world so far. He's really struggled, and I don't know what it is with him, because he's like a Duracell bunny, isn't he? Like last season, seasons before, he just plays that the amount of football that he plays unbelievable. Obviously, he played for Scotland as well at the Euros, and you were thinking to yourself, is Tsimikas good enough to sort of like give him competition? Didn't really look the case last season. But this season, he's looked outstanding when he's being called upon. And he's arguably been better. Well, he has been better this season. Delivery's been outstanding as well in some of the games. And I just wonder, it's a strange situation, because normally the idea of having competition for places, you'd expect your main man in that position to sort of, add that little bit of fire in his belly, and it puts in better performances. It seems to have gone the other way with Robertson. Like he's almost shocked that there's someone that could probably take his position. Now, look, I love Andy Robertson. He's arguably the best left back in the Premier League. There's no doubt about that. But certainly does need to step up a little bit, shall we say, because he's struggled so far. And it is interesting to see if he starts the game in Porto or Tsimikas gets the nod, because he's definitely knocking on the manager's door to be starting games. And I know he started a few. He started the Palace game. He also started against Norwich in the Carabao Cup. So he sat the game out against Brentford. So whether or not he'll rest Robertson in this game with the Man City game in mind on Sunday, I'm not so sure. But like I say, we've got options, haven't we? I mean, look at the centre-back department last year. We had loads of players injured. We were relying on fourth and fifth choice and playing central midfield players at centre-half. Now we've got Kanate, £36 million signing. The summers look quite good for us so far when called upon. We've also got Joe Gomez back from injury. And Virgil van Dijk's another one where you're looking at it thinking he's just suffered a really bad injury. Now, everyone knows he's a Rolls Royce. He's the best centre-back in world football. But can he play 3 games in the space of 7 or 8 days? I'm not so sure, because last time in the Champions League against Milan, he never started the game, did he? So it's interesting whether or not he'll start this one or not, because 100% he won him for the game against Man City. So will he sit this one out? I'm not sure. It's going to be an interesting one for Klopp to decide. But the beauty of it is Liverpool have got strength in depth, have got options. The only part that we haven't is probably right back with Trent. I'm not really convinced by Nico Williams defensively. And the thing is, James Milner done a fantastic job there against Zaha, against Palace the other week. But you don't really want him to be playing there that often, really, do you? I mean, I know he was outstanding, but he'd probably be the first to admit he doesn't really want to be playing there. It's better in the centre of the park. And I think this game against Porto on Tuesday is tailor-made for Milner to start in midfield, to tell you the truth. I think he will get the nod to play in midfield. But look, in terms of winning the game, as I said before, it's a case of the first 15 minutes are key to try and sort of knock the stuff out of the fans, the atmosphere. Hopefully Liverpool can get an early goal. If we don't, I think, our experience with it in these type of environments and these type of games and in the Champions League will just be able to see us through. I'm not expecting a convincing victory like we have in the past. But, it doesn't really matter too much as long as Liverpool win the game. That's all that truly matters. To gain a little bit of confidence again, a bit of momentum going into the game against City on Sunday.
I want to talk about two players. Jay really spoken about one of them, but I want to go in a bit more depth. So we're going to start with Mane. So, I saw this in last season. Someone said that Mane's, I think, even in his bad season, I think he still had better stats than most, better than quite a few other good attacking players you can see. So you think of other big clubs, he still had very good stats compared to them. But obviously, we're still comparing Mane's to his 18-19 season. So I thought against Palace, he looked frustrated, even though he got his goal. And when he scored that goal, I thought he was going to kick on. Now, although he did some good kind of defensive blocks against Brentford, he looked the same frustrated Mane of last season. So, is there a concern of you with Mane? Because, why? I know he hasn't had rest and a proper general holiday, but why has he gone so downhill? He's lost a lot of pace in terms of being able to take on a man. Sometimes his decision making the ball's not that good as it used to be. We'll start with you again, Guy. What's wrong with Mane?
I think it's a confidence issue. I don't think his style, just his way in which maybe sometimes his technique, or the thing with Mane is he always gets chances, and that's why I think you persist with him, because he always gets chances. But at the moment, they're not going in. And like I said, I think it's a confidence thing. Like you, I thought when he scored a goal against Burnley, didn't he? That brilliant play down the right-hand side, Trent clipped it in and he put it away. And I thought, like you said before, that was going to be the moment. It was going to be lift off. Fans were back. He scored against Palace at the end of last season when the fans were in. And I thought maybe that was what he needed to reignite the fire for him, was playing in that atmosphere, not playing in glorified friendlies, but actually playing in proper football games in proper atmospheres, and he would be the man. But then he had the game against Leeds where he had all those chances, and it took him right till the end to be able to tuck one away. And I just think at the moment it's one of those, and I think any striker will kind of go through it, of he's trying too hard at the moment to put those chances away and not maybe acting on the instinct that he has done in the past, where he does just swing his boot at it and it flies into the bottom corner. At the moment, he's maybe trying to be a bit too precise with everything, and that's never really been his style. When you think of Mane and you think of the great goals he scored even against Arsenal on his debut, where he just cuts in and just absolutely hammers the ball without a care. Well, obviously he has a care in the world for where it's going, but you know what I mean? He leaves nothing off it and just absolutely rifles it into the back of the net. Maybe at times he's trying to be a bit too precise in things. And as I say, at the moment, I think it's one of those where he does just need to keep playing and play his way back into form, because I'm pretty sure his quality and his class is too much to suggest that he won't get back to that kind of level. It's one of those with he and Mohamed Salah, where people always look at it and go, oh, how many chances did they waste? But kind of maybe prior to this season, I've not looked at the data, but so often those guys actually overperform their statistical data in terms of the XG of the chances they have had and the goals they've scored over the course of the season. And maybe it is a case of actually things are beginning to level off for Sadio Mane, which is then also where Liverpool need more strength in depth. And I think of the forward areas, Roberto Firmino, I think, is probably for me a bigger concern than Sadio Mane, because Roberto Firmino has been a great link man for Liverpool's attack to unlock the likes of Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane. But even for me, and I know he's obviously had the injury, that link-up play from him doesn't quite look what it was. And yet you've got a player like Diogo Jota who's getting the goals at the moment to kind of mask over the lack of form for both Sadio Mane and Roberto Firmino. But how long can that continue? The two of them both need to rediscover their form. And I think with Sadio Mane, I think it is there. As I say, for me, I'd be more worried about Roberto Firmino.
Tony Madison said he'd be happy with the Origi starting over Mane. Jay, well, I think that's a bit extreme, but what's wrong with Mane, Jay?
Look, he scored 3 this season in the Premier League in 6 games. And when you think about it, the Leeds game, he could have had a hat-trick. He could have had 4 or 5. And when you analyse the chances that he had, very unfortunate on a couple of occasions, really good defending, last-ditch tackles and stuff, a little block. The freak block, one of them that I can remember. So, he deserved his goal late on in the game to wrap it up 3-0. I don't think he's been as bad as what some are making him out to be perfectly honest. I think, I agree with what Guy's saying. Roberto Firmino has been, I wouldn't say poor, but very questionable about his form and doesn't really score as many goals no more, but probably about 18 months, a lot longer than what Sadio Mane is. So I think if the major concern out of any one of the famous or the infamous, front three, it'd be Firmino rather than anyone else, to be honest with you. But like I say, Mane's not been great since probably February this year, back in the last season, last couple of months. And, this season, I wouldn't criticise him too much because he still scored 3 and 6 and 1 and 2 ratio. It's still decent enough. I know he sets high standards. He was still goal scorer, wasn't he, a few seasons back with he was joint, wasn't he, with
he got
Salah.
19 that season though, didn't he? And
yeah,
so that's a 1 in 2 rate as well. I don't think he played all 38 games, but your point of a 1 in 2 man, it's not too sniffed at, is it?
Not too bad, because let's not forget he's not a centre forward, he's a wide forward, which is what Mo Salah is. So everyone's lauding Salah for getting 100 Premier League goals for Liverpool, and his ratio's unbelievable. But Mane's not too far behind him really in that stat, is he? I just think people are reading too much into it really, and of course, they suffer with crisis of confidence and they go through the emotions and. They are trying too hard at times. I think that's exactly what it is with Sadio. He's not soft. He knows that his form's not been as good as previous years, shall we say, previous seasons. But we all know what he's capable of. There's anyone who's writing Sadio Mane off is absolutely foolish for me because you can't give Roberto Firmino 18 months worth of grace, and because Mane's not being great for 6 months, start writing him off. It's foolish really because. He's still a fantastic player, and hopefully he'll score a goal in Porto on Tuesday night and shut a few people up. But I'm not writing him off at all. I just think something's not being quite right. I agree, but he's still young enough. Is he 29 or something? So certainly not over the hill. He's not even 30 years of age yet. I just think sometimes because of his high standards that he's got, he had a little bit of a drop off, and people are writing him off. And I just think writing him off is terrible. It's foolish to do so because I still think he's a fantastic player.
Yeah, just on a final point there on Sadio Mane and kind of wanting it so much. I think when you even look at the first goal for Liverpool at the weekend on Saturday, he's wanting it so much that he's starting on the left. He's moving into that central area because that's where most goals come from, the centre of the penalty box. And yet the ball goes over to the far post and it's a header in at the far post from Diogo Jota, which before Diogo Jota came to the club, that was kind of becoming Sadio Mane's kind of thing, would be a right-wing cross normally from Trent and Mane heading it in. But because he's so desperate to make sure he's right there in the middle, he's getting into the middle of the penalty area and Diogo Jota is just drifting off to the far post, no one marking him. And because he's the man in form at the moment, it seems as though everything he does turns to goals. And for Sadio Mane, he's there, he's scratching around and hunting, and it will come back for him. I'm sure it will. He's too good for it not to.
Definitely agree. I do think when people writing him off are being very premature. And I think he's still a very good player. But I want to go on to Tsimikas and Robbo's situation. Now, obviously Robbo's been the best left back in football for the last 3-4 years, and obviously he wasn't helped. He was injured at the Euros, came back, and he's obviously trying to play way back into fitness. And I think I get obviously why Klopp's playing him because he's tried and tested, and he's experienced, and Klopp always picks his favourite. But is there an argument that based on form alone, not reputation, that Tsimikas should be starting over Robbo for the next 2 games, and give him a run? Because he's arguably he's had a better season so far this season. And, sometimes when Robbo's played, you can see like Mane's come a bit more alive when Tsimikas played. When Robbo's played, it's not, because of both not in the best of form, you can see that whole left-hand side isn't that great. So, is an argument that Tsimikas should be started and Robbo just rested for the time being until he gets back to form?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one because for me, I think Tsimikas has been great, and I was kind of thinking this one. You were mentioning it there, and when Joe was talking about Robertson before, and I mean, this team collectively really is kind of not grown old because a lot of them aren't past 30, but have grown together. And whilst that cohesion, I think, is one of the most underrated things it's a team sport, is football. So having players who have played together for countless times is a real invaluable tool. But at the same time, because everyone is so fixated these days, with transfers, but the commodity of football is goals. Everyone always says for the Liverpool team breaking up, it's going to be breaking up that front three and succession planning all around there. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe this Liverpool team has been built off really the attack also, off the fullbacks and the supply that they've given. Now, Tsimikas this season has proven going forward that he's been absolutely brilliant going forward, and the crosses he's put into the box, the corners he's taken, everything like that has been absolutely fantastic. I think for Porto, it's a real big shout to put him in. For me, though, I would stick with Robertson and just get him as a guy who gets back into the rhythm of. He played every Premier League game last season. He's not a player who's used to coming out, coming back in, coming out and coming back in to regain his form. So if Robertson's going to get back to his best, I think he plays his way back to his best. And I think with Tsimikas, we've not really seen him tested defensively just yet. And when you think about the Man City game, he came on in the game at Anfield last season right towards the end. I think the damage had probably already been done by that time, but he's not had that big test, and I think it would be a huge gamble to throw him in for it. Equally, I can understand playing him away at Porto. That is, we mentioned all the sort of before building up to that game about sort of the atmosphere it would be, and I think that would be a big test and a good little building block for him. But I don't think you'd throw him straight into away at Porto and at home to Man City, given how pivotal that game could be for the season. But equally, I think if Robertson's form continues to kind of be on the slide, then there will inevitably come the calls where Tsimikas is ahead of him. But for the time being, I think Robbo's deserved and earned kind of what he's done for the club, the opportunity to pull his form back.
Tony Madden says here, Klopp is too loyal to the number one in the position instead of the best player. Tsimikas should start before Robbo. So how about you, Jay? Like, do you agree with the guy in that Robbo should be given the chance to play back in, or do you think Tsimikas has been the player in form, not the better player, just playing form for the time being, and his crossing and what he's offering attack has actually sometimes been more than what Robbo has done so far this season?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it before, didn't I? I mean, Robertson's been the number one for such a long time now, and we all know he's probably the best fullback, left back in Premier League and arguably in Europe, really, to tell you the truth. But this season he's struggled, there's no doubt about that. And Tsimikas, when he's been called upon, has done, been fantastic, really, especially going forward, deliveries into the box, corners, what have you, far more dangerous than Andy Robertson. I still question his defensive side of his game, though. Robertson is a lot better defender for me, probably a bit quicker as well. But again, it's one of them situations. What do you do? I mean, with Robertson, he's never really had this shock to the system where he's had competition for his position. And I think he's not really enjoyed it. This is what I was saying before. Normally, when you bring competition in for places, you want your main men to rise to the challenge. And at this moment in time, it's only early in the season, but he hasn't really rose to that challenge. He struggled a little bit. But I think Guy makes a really good point, because it's easy to say, leave him out of this game and obviously play him the game against City, because I don't think you could really trust Tsimikas in the game against City, because we don't really know yet. He might start and be fantastic, but would you really take that risk in such a massive, high-profile game in City? I wouldn't myself, because you'd stay with the tried and trusted method of Robertson there in your back line, because you know that he's proved himself in these big occasions, in the big games, against title challenges. But he's not in great form. You can't get away from that fact. So what you do is you take him up the final line of this game against Porto, or do you let him play himself into form, and hopefully he has a good performance in the drag-out on Tuesday night, and take that into the confidence he gets from that into the game in City on Sunday. It's a very interesting call to make. And the thing with Robertson, it's not like he needs to rest. When you talk about Matip can't play 3 games in a week, and that's why he was rested against Palace the weekend. Well, the same could apply now, couldn't it? He might end up getting rested for the Porto game with the City game in mind. Where Andy Robertson don't really need to rest him, because he's like a Duracell bunny. He played every single Premier League game last season. He plays all the big games in the Champions League. So I don't think that's an issue with Robertson. He wouldn't need the rest of him at all. So I think he makes a really good point, Guy, because I personally would just probably start him in the game on Tuesday in the hope that he can build a little bit of confidence, a bit of momentum going into the City game. It's a little bit unfair on Tsimikas because he's proved to be an adequate deputy. There's no doubt about that, and that's exactly what we want. But I'm sure, as the season goes on, it's a long, hard season, and he'll certainly get other opportunities as the season progresses.
Totally agree. Interesting points you both make. Everyone, if you are watching, please do smash that like and subscribe button. So moving on to lineups, just before we get yours, Anthony Perez says he's probably going to go with Ali, Trent, Konate, Gomez, Tsimikas, Fab, Jones, Naby, Mo, Origi, Jota. So we'll start with you, Jay. What's your lineup for tomorrow?
Look, it's difficult to call, isn't it? Because there will be one eye or half an eye on the City game. So that's massively important. But you can't overlook this game against Porto, because it'll be really great to get another victory and get 6 points from the first 2 games, because we know then we've got a double header, shall we say, against Atletico away from home and then at Anfield. So they're going to be massive games. It's tough, really intense games against Diego Simeone's teams. So it's going to be an interesting team selection. As I said before, probably there's a toss-up, isn't it, 50-50, whether Tsimikas or Robertson's at left back, but probably would go with Robertson. The centre-half pairing, again, an interesting one, because I really think, Matip and Van Dijk are brilliant together normally, and you probably would want that as your centre-half pairing for the game against City. So, the lads who's just given the team there, it's probably got a shout, really, for Gomez and Konate. But again, it's a top-up. It's really difficult to second-guess what Klopp's going to do, because he's got that many options. Everyone said, didn't he, Liverpool lack the strength in depth, but that's not really the case at the moment, because we've got 2 injuries in the team, and now we've got 2 injuries. There's numerous options for selection. We've got 2 left backs, we've got 4 centre backs. Obviously, we've only really got Trent at right back. In midfield, there's 6, 7 midfield options. I know we've got an injury to Thiago, which is a bit disappointing. Harvey Elliott's, he's emerged, hasn't he, this season? He's injured. That's disappointing. There's loads of other options. I mean, I thought Curtis Jones was outstanding against Brentford. He was arguably our best player in the game. So maybe he'll get a chance again, because I couldn't really see him starting against City. So on that basis, I think he might get another opportunity to start against Porto. And the interesting one then is Henderson, because obviously he played against Brentford. He's obviously, we were going to want him to play against City because he's the captain. So will he be able to play 3 games in the space of a week? I'm not so sure. So you might see Henderson missing out in this game. And I said before, didn't I? I think Milner will start in the midfield. And of course, you've got to play Fabinho for me, because just what he gives to the team, he protects the back line really well. Albeit he had a poor game in Brentford at the weekend, he looked a little bit sluggish at times. We all know what he's good at, what he's capable of doing. He's fantastic. Gets around the pitch really well. Then big long legs, intercepts he intercepts the ball quite a lot and stops the momentum from the opposition quite regularly. So I think he's an important cog in the team, and I think he's got to start. So for me, the midfield will probably be Fabinho, Milner, and maybe Curtis Jones. And then again, up front, people say we haven't got options, but Fabinho's back now. You've got Mane, you've got Salah, you've got Jota, you've got Origi, who started against Milan, who, I thought he would have moved on in the summer, to be honest. Didn't see much of the future here for him, but all of a sudden, Jurgen Klopp shocks us and he starts in the game against Milan, and he played quite well, to be fair. Got an assist in the game, didn't he, for Mo Salah just after half time. So look, he's got to be in contention to start as well. And also, a little, strange one that you can throw in there is a little bit of a shock inclusion, maybe Minamino, because he scored 2 goals against Norwich. And one thing about Minamino, he probably suits European football a little bit better than the Premier League games. And the thing is, he's proved in front of goal. He can be quite clinical. He's not bad in front of goal, to be fair. So who knows? He might get a little opportunity as well. So anyone who's saying Liverpool haven't got options, of course we have, because look at what I've just mentioned there. There's 2 players for virtually every position. So it's going to be an interesting team selection. I just don't know what he's going to go with. Someone said to me earlier today, you reckon maybe Salah might sit this game out and be brought on maybe on the hour mark or something. Personally, I think Salah's first name on the team sheet every week, but you do have to factor in that Mane's had the rest this season, Jota's had the rest this season, Firmino's just had an injury. Out of all the forward options that we've got, Salah hasn't been rested in any game other than the Norwich game in the Carabao Cup, which is low down on the priority. So when it comes to Premier League and Champions League games, he's probably the only one that hasn't had a break, hasn't had a rest, hasn't been on the bench. So, maybe it's not a bad shout, but me personally, he'd be the first name on the team sheet. So, like I say, it's very difficult to second guess what Klopp's going to do because he will certainly have half an eye on the City game on Sunday.
What about you, Guy? What's your lineup?
Yeah, I'll go through my lineup, but just as Jay was speaking there, I've got the team sheet up for the weekend's game, and obviously it's 9 substitutes in the Premier League this year. And I'm not saying this is my team or that I would do this, but if you look at the 9 players on the bench and you add in, say, Trent and either Fabinho or Henderson, you could play that bench as an 11. You could have Kelleher in goal, Trent at right back, centre-half partnership of Konate and Gomez, Tsimikas at left back, midfield 3 of Milner, Ox, and as I said, either Fabinho or Henderson, and a front 3 of Firmino, Minamino, and Origi. So the whole idea that Liverpool don't have depth is a complete myth, because that would, I would say, wouldn't be a team that would be out of place of playing in a Champions League game, to be honest. But for me, I think Matip, I don't think can play. I don't think you can play Matip in case of injury. So for me, I would put Ibrahima Konate in, because for me, as soon as he gets up to speed, I think he can be a colossal at the heart of the Liverpool defence. And it seems as though it's he and Matip who are kind of favoured for that right-hand side of the defence position. And Gomez is kind of playing on the left-hand side almost as the Van Dijk deputy. And having played alongside Van Dijk for so long, and the 2 of them being really close off the pitch as well, and having gone through their rehab last season together, it does feel as though Gomez can potentially become that heir to Virgil van Dijk, because we forget just how young Joe Gomez is as well. So for me, I'd put Konate in. I'd leave Robbo at left back, as I alluded to before. So it'd be Alisson, Trent, Konate, Van Dijk, and Robertson. Midfield 3, this is where I don't know, listening to Jen talking about Milner kind of makes me think going away from home and silencing that crowd would be a good idea to put Milner in. Equally, something about Ox and European nights and a game where maybe he could kind of burst open from midfield. Yes, it'd be sort of fighting fire with fire, going to a big atmosphere like Dragao and putting someone like him in. But I don't know. I'm going to go for him. I'm going to throw Ox in. I'll put Fabinho holding in the midfield, and then I'll probably go with Ox and I'm going to go with Jones, because again, I think Henderson can just do with a bit of a rest, make sure he's fully right for Man City, because as much as it wasn't a big injury for him, it was a long-term injury in terms of that groin one he picked up at the end of last season. And he is picking up a bit of a habit, Jordan Henderson, of picking up these niggly injuries that aren't going away as quickly as maybe they once would in his career. And then in terms of the front line, I'm going to go Salah, Jota, and I think I'm going to throw Minamino in there as well. I was thinking of Divock Origi, but I think Minamino, he and Jota are able to kind of combine and switch positions from through the middle and out to the left-hand side. I think that gives a nice blend to the team. And Ox getting forward and supporting the attack as well. I think there's a lot of attacking options within that team. And albeit, I think Jones and Ox in the midfield is a very attacking way to go at it. But as I said before, if Liverpool can get themselves maybe a nice 2-goal lead and then start making some changes and have players rested up for the weekend, could be the way to go.
Yeah, I think my team that I'll go with is Alisson. You guys are good. I was going to have Tsimikas, but you guys put good arguments about Robbo, so I'm going to go Robbo. Konate. I think you're going to play. I think you might go Konate Gomez tomorrow. Rest Van Dijk and both Matip for the weekend. Trent at right back. Midfield Fabinho. I'd probably go Milner. I think Henderson. I agreed. Henderson needs to be rested for the weekend. And then I was going to go with Jones, but I can see the argument for Ox. See what he could do. So I wouldn't be against Ox starting. Up top, I think he's going to start Bobby against City. So that's why I'm not going to start him tonight. I think he's going to go Bobby because of the press. So I'm going to go with Salah, Origi, and then Jota. I think Mane will be rested for this one. Mina's potentially could be a shout there, but I have a feeling he'll go with Origi again for some reason. So we're interested to see the lineup tomorrow. Okay, so moving on, we'll go to predictions. So start with DJ. What's your prediction for tomorrow?
Look, I think it's going to be a tough game. I'm not going to, sit here and say I think we'll wipe the floor with them the way we have in previous years. I just think they've probably done a lot more thinking about this game. Certainly, they've got the same manager, so he knows what to expect. Liverpool haven't really changed too much in terms of the way we play. Certainly not in Europe the last couple of years. So, it's all right. Teams thinking we can get onto how we play, but it's one thing to know, and then putting into practice is a different kettle of fish. And teams really struggle, don't they, to play against Liverpool because we are so high tempo. And I think their manager said we're aggressive. He didn't mean aggressive in terms of challenges, just aggressive in the way we are and our approach, with the way we pressure teams and pressure players and don't let them settle. Liverpool's no doubt about Liverpool do work hard as a team. But look, I think we might have a little bit too much for them. I don't think it'll be easy at all because look, they're unbeaten this season the same way as Liverpool are. So we're playing a team that's going to be wanting to right a few wrongs from previous years gone by when we've beaten them, and not just beating them, giving them a hiding. It might be a little bit closer this time around, but I think Liverpool just have a little bit too much, and it's all about getting the 3 points. I'm sure Klopp will agree with that, and I think Liverpool will now 2-1 wins.
Interesting. Rabbi also has 2-1. Anthony says 3-1 Liverpool. Ginny's going 5-0 Liverpool. Okay, that's quite ambitious. Guy, what's your score?
I think 2-0 Liverpool. I think goal inside maybe the first 20 minutes, quieten the place down. Then it'll probably be a bit attritional. I can see them definitely having chances, but hopefully Liverpool can ride out the storm and get themselves a second in the second half, and on they go to welcoming City to Anfield.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. I do think that's going to score. I just feel like they are going to get that goal, but we'll ride out a 2-1 win. But yeah, it's going to be interesting tomorrow to see how tomorrow pans out. Okay, yeah, so we'll leave it there. It's getting a bit late now. Do appreciate both of you guys are coming on. Always good to have you guys on here. So we'll definitely have you on again, guys, soon. And Jay, as always, it's always a pleasure having you on, mate. Everyone, you have been really good in the chat as always. So appreciate you. Do smash that like and subscribe button you haven't done. We'll also give Guy and Jay a follow as well on Twitter. You can see their Twitter handles on there. So give them a follow. Otherwise, we will see you all tomorrow. I will be doing a live watch along. So if you want to join on that one, just drop me a message. Otherwise, I'll be on for that tomorrow. Otherwise, hope everyone has a good evening and up the Reds.